Thanks, Abby. I'm Marissa. I'm an alcoholic. Oh, I'm gonna try not to cry. I don't know why I'm so emotional. Probably because I'm about to be honest and raw, and that's not something I do every day. Well, I try to be honest, but not raw. Anyway, so let's see. This is the first time I've done this, and so it's intimidating, just so you know. But I am 100% willing, and yeah. So what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. Let's see. What it was like was, I'd say that I was uncomfortable, just kind of in general, my whole life, as far back as I can recall. And so when I first experienced alcohol and drugs when I was an adolescent, it allowed me to feel different. It kind of gave me relief, even if it wasn't necessarily a good feeling. At least it was an alternative, and it was the only way that I had at that point discovered anything that could give me some sense of difference or change. And so it quickly became, a real priority for me. And because I'm 48, I'm really going to fast forward because, 15 minutes, but I'm just going to kind of go probably very typical stories from then until maybe my 30s. Well, I became a mother in my early to mid 20s. And up to that point, I had not been able to stay sober. And I can see now in hindsight that higher the maternity, which just kind of naturally became a higher power, without my knowledge at the time, it was just instinct, and also gave me an opportunity to be of service. And so for a period of time, I was sober, and inspired, by my child to stay sober. But I didn't do the program. I had knowledge of it. But I just wasn't really convinced that I needed it, and then that belief only increased over time as I managed to, get myself good jobs, start taking care of I had a second child a few years later. I was absolutely, committed to motherhood and feeling kind of independent and as an alcoholic, that leads to sort of cockiness, right? And so I was independent, but I was also very controlling. I didn't let a lot of people real close to me. I never really had a long-term relationship. And so into my 30s, as I drank every day, my drinking, my disease progressed as it does. And so by the time I was in my middle 30s, I was drinking, every day. I had a job that randomly tested me because I was, accountable to the DOT federal regulations. And so I can see now that really did keep me, how would I put this? I was very tricky. I was very manipulative. I knew how to get what I wanted and keep it legal. You know what I mean? So many years I had prescriptions. I had, I read Dr. Bob's story early on and I totally related to his story. Well, I did relate to his story, I'll say, but because of, the fact that he drank every night, woke up, sedatives, I would sit outside with my cigarette shaking like this, what am I, but it was that window of like 5 minutes or whatever, take my pills and then just dive into the day. And it would repeat, it would repeat, it would repeat. And what happened, I guess, was when I was, so it was 2015, so 10 years ago, I had an accident at work and I was on L&I. I was a single mom and my kids were in school And I was given more prescriptions. And so I was home all day. The kids were gone. And I did what, I guess an alcoholic does. And it got real dark then. And I think right about that time is when the disease had pretty much consumed me, I can see I have a lot of empathy for people who are deep in addiction because I've been there. I've been there where I didn't see any other options. I've been there where it just, I don't know. I look back now and see, that saying that's, or I guess it's a metaphor that's overused, but you can't see the forest for the trees. It's often, used in like a negative context, but I think that it's just true. You know what I mean? And the only way we really learn about ourselves is through reflection. I mean, we don't sit there and like learn about ourselves. But anyway, I'm getting off track and getting a little bit confused. So yeah, it was a couple of years of I didn't work for about a year. I was, drinking and using real heavily. Tried to go back to work, but a couple of years after that accident, my kids decided to move away from me, and they were 12 and 16 at the time. And that's something that's really hard for me to wrap my brain around, that I let that happen. But that's what this disease does, right? It completely destroys. It destroyed my ability to remember the things that matter to me. So my kids moved away. I just, instead of having, the resources to learn how to turn that around, I just, dove deeper into my alcoholism, and I, was in a relationship with a really severe alcoholic, and it was really violent. And I lost my 18-year career. I left my 18-year career with another thing I can't wrap my brain around, but in my mind, in my reality at that time, that was the only option I had. I didn't have the option of fixing what was happening, I was homeless for 2 years, and I didn't see any anyway. I was controlled and had been consumed at that point. And the fact that I got out of it is really a mystery to me right now. I'm a year and 1 week sober today. And I was living with another alcoholic until about a year and a half ago, who is 100% consumed by the disease. And I don't hold him responsible as a human for wanting to kill me, but I know that his disease that disease that's working through him wants to kill me. And so and I think in a lot of ways, relationships have kind of worked in my life. I'm sorry, addiction has worked through relationships in my life, where I've become confused as far as like what it is I'm attracted to. You know what I mean? Because it always ends up being some horrible alcoholic, and that can't be a coincidence. But anyway, he became really sick, and really, honestly, we were gamblers, alcoholics, drug addicts. I mean, just the whole, the gamut. And a number of years that kept me unconscious, to the point where I was able to not address the things that hurt me. And more painful things were happening. Some people really close to me were dying from the disease. He became really ill with a terminal disease, was suffering, in our home. And my dad died. That was a couple years ago. And the fact that I was not sober and, just not the woman that I wish I would have been able to be for my father. Those, just all of that. Just it's a culmination, right? Managed to get myself off to treatment because I had woken up in a hell. Like, I think that the chemicals stopped working and I was no longer unconscious of what I was living with, you know? And so I had to move. I had to get away. And I wasn't employable. You know, that was another issue. What time is it? Okay. I wasn't employable. I was dependent on this man who, you know, I would absolutely categorize as abusive. But I would say I was abusive as well. That's how alcoholics are. We're very selfish and very cruel. You know, and I'm even ashamed right now to realize that in 11 minutes I've hardly spoken to my children. I will say though, it's so painful that, and I don't want to like just snot and drool everywhere. They have been amazing though. I mean, they are 24 and 20 now, and they just have a lot of love and forgiveness in their hearts. Yes. And I am absolutely grateful for that. So now I have a sponsor. And when I first returned from treatment, I moved in with my aunt. Grateful to have had a safe place to live, because a lot of alcoholics don't have that. And I don't know if I would have made it without that. And I was just a shell of a human, you know. I would wake up in bed and just like dread, and the day felt echoey and weird, and I felt weird for a long time, you know, for months. And but every day I would go to meeting. I knew I'd seen, you know, firsthand what AA can do and be, and I by example. It was never pushed on me, never, you know, shoved down my throat. I just have had a really good friend for many years that I've known all along was in AA, and has built a beautiful life, one that I admire very much. And so then when I was at a meeting and heard Abby speak, and she said some things that I just totally, you know, dug, and I felt like she has things that I want as well. And I kept going to meetings, and then I, you know, got brave and asked her to be my sponsor, and we started talking, and you know, things started changing, but you know, I didn't know they were changing then. It was just kind of painful, but that's growth, right? I mean, that's growth. That's just the truth. And it's absolutely, so the higher power thing, which I do understand and absolutely believe, you know, is my answer to my disease, my relationship with my higher power. And that's something that's just, I'm willing to develop. And that's all I need to, that's not all I need to be. I don't need to be anything more than willing. That's what it tells me in the third step. And so I can be okay with that. I don't have to judge my progress. I don't have to judge, you know, I can, if I can honestly say that I'm being willing, I'm doing the things that scare me, you know, I'm remaining accountable. As Bill W. said, you know, to practice humility and responsibility. I'm on the right track. And, you know, that conscious contact, that praying, you know, that's something I'm practicing. I'm practicing every day throughout the day. And my life today is, you know, unrecognizable to the life that I had a year ago. Life I didn't have, I should say. And yeah, so 38 seconds, I think I've filled.
That's great.
Thanks, sir.
Good job. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting. Meeting expenses are covered by our voluntary contributions, and the basket should be going around. And up here we have some newcomer packets and some schedules. Anyone's welcome to come up and grab one of those. And Laura will introduce our 30-minute speaker, Abby.